Welcome to the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay. This is your positive path for spiritual living.
So, the Sunday after the elections, I kept thinking, how am I going to begin this talk? How am I going to begin this service? And I asked Ashley, our new director of business operations, that same thing. Right? Like, how should I start it? And she said, I have something great for you. It's like, oh, wow, okay, sure. She said, God is great, God is good. Let us thank you for our food. Amen. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but at least it broke the ice. The beginning of the service has started. And really, I just kind of needed to kind of break some of that energy up, because even though it has been already a couple of days, I'm still feeling the energy of the election, and I'm still recognizing the things that are for me to recognize during this time. You see, I know that for quite a few people, the election day was this great big goal, and I'm sure to an extent it was for me. And I know that many of us, if we admit it, we thought that maybe this election would be a huge piece of the answer to that which we have been wrestling with. And I've come to realize that actually it might be a part of it, but the reality is that there is something much bigger than an election going on. There is something much bigger than my role even within it, because elections matter. They are important, but they aren't the real answer. The answer to the questions that we have been wrestling with is for us to accept and own that we are the seat of power, that we are the ones that actually create the shifts, that we are the ones that are able to look at our experiences and do some good with them. And so I'm getting to the place of really owning that for me. And I think about, the political fight that we have been in for quite a while, and will probably continue to be at some level for quite a while longer. And I recognize that most fights that I have ever heard of or been part of, sure, there might be a winner, but everyone leaves bruised. Everyone leaves with some level of healing that needs to take place. And so, listen, I get it. So many of you may be overwhelmed in this moment, and that is okay. Be gentle with yourself, but just don't let yourself forget that really there's more work to be done. And that work really begins here and now as we say yes to that which is before us. Now, in the midst of all that is happening on around us, we have to remember, I think for me, what that song reminds me of. When I forget, I need those reminders that we are all interconnected, that we are all one human family, that we are all a part of the oneness that is God. And more than ever, I feel that I need that reminder. You see, I have had some experiences that in other ways could have kept me from fully knowing that. Or I could have used as a barrier to be able to see that you and I are connected, as are the people that may not think the same as I do, or the individuals that may show up in a different way. Actually, my opportunity is here and now to see beyond those appearances and try to really get to the heart of the truth of who we are, one and in harmony, in the process of healing. And so some of you may already know what I'm about to share with you because I put it on Facebook, but last week on Saturday, I had prayed, I had voted, and I was doing what I was being called to do, which is to go knock on doors and canvass. And I went out and I went to this one house where the voter that I was supposed to speak to was at, or was supposed to be at, and I knocked on the door. And somebody else opened the door, and I just asked for him, and she responded that he wasn't there. And I had already put, because it was all very safe, so I had already put this little door hanger on their doorknob and walked a couple of steps back so that it would be very safe. And I just said, Great. Well, for them or for you, if you're interested, this is some information just on equality and some of what we hope that you consider. And as soon as she picked it up, I was walking away, and all of a sudden, I hear her start to scream at me, and she just crumbled it up. I turned back, and she threw it right in my face. And she started to tell me to take that trash away from there, to never come back. She threw the door on me, and I could still hear her screaming obscenities at me. And I have to tell you that in that moment, I did not feel as one. I did not feel connected. I felt pretty darn low, actually, in that moment, and pretty upset. I was in disbelief, and as I was walking back to my car, some of the disbelief started to dissipate, and all of a sudden, I found myself getting really upset and angry. I was really hurt. And as I was about to drive away, something else, though, some reminder by the grace of God told me to stop. And I looked straight at that door, and I started to do a process that we have shared with you before, the process of Ho'oponopono. And that is that as I was looking at that door and remembering what had just occurred, I started to say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. At first, not much happened. So I realized that I needed to say it again. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And again. And it was, I'm sorry. I am sorry for not fully understanding whatever it is that you are moving through that caused you to respond and react in that way. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for not being able to see here and now that both of us are one, that we are both children of God, expressions of good, really, deep within us. I love you. From the place of my own Christ nature, I can love that which is within you, that divinity, that Christ nature, that is your truth, whether you or I are able to see it. And thank you for this opportunity that has really made me realize that I need to do some healing work. As much as I thought I was moving through it quite beautifully, there is still more healing to do. It just reminds me, a lot of times in our meditations, we would say here at Unity on the Bay, reveal what must be revealed, heal what must be healed. Well, guess what? Things are being revealed. So it's our opportunity to say what we're going to do with it. And I'm choosing, and I believe that really at the core of who you are, you know that you also want to heal that which has been revealed. And it was so uncomfortable in those moments as I was doing Ho'oponopono in front of that door. And I remember Neil Donald Walsh, one of my favorite things that he ever said, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I know that we have let's just say I think 2020 has really been about us getting more comfortable with our discomfort, right? And maybe this week showed it up for some of us quite more intensely. One of the things that Brené Brown wrote in a book a couple of years ago, Braving the Wilderness, said, "The world feels high, lonesome, and heartbroken to me right now. We've sorted ourselves into factions. We've turned away from one another and toward blame and rage. We are lonely and untethered." Maybe you don't feel that way, but it's in the field. I can tell you that it is currently in the field, that I have experienced and sensed it myself, and you probably have too. And so the question is, how do we get back to recognizing in this very moment, taking this opportunity? Some of us may see it as the momentum that we can continue to build up from. Some of us may just see it as an opportunity for us to move into something greater. But how are we taking this opportunity to really center ourselves in our interconnectedness and in the idea, the belief, the understanding that we are one? And so, last week also, the day right after I went canvassing, I was speaking at Unity of Vero Beach. They asked me to go and speak there. And quite interesting, they actually provided the theme for me to speak on. Instead of me giving it to them, they're going by a calendar that they had of prearranged themes. And the theme was interconnection. Like rivers flowing from one source, we are all connected. How's that for a reminder? I needed to hear that. I needed to speak about that because I needed to get really clear about what the opportunity was for in this moment. It was so perfect. And I love that analogy because, yes, we are connected, and yes, it feels like the rivers. Because for me, I can see that some rivers feel very peaceful and very calm, and then some rivers roar. Some rivers can be scary. Some rivers can feel like there's just a lot of chaos. And regardless of which of those rivers I may be experiencing, my source is God. We flow from the same energy, from the same spirit, and it is for us to recognize more fully that truth and be able to express it and live in integrity with it. It is radical, I believe, in the midst of as much division as we are seeing in the world around us, to also be able to see unity. It is radical not only to see unity, but to recognize that it is our responsibility to grow it, to deepen it, to expand it. We have to own this responsibility. Yes, it's hard. I get it. Some of you are tired of it. And there's work still to be done. Tara Brach, the author of Radical Acceptance and Radical Compassion, says, inclusive, loving community is an intrinsic part of the spiritual path, the vision, the aspiration, and the movement towards it. And when I believe or I hear loving community, yes, I can think about the loving community of Unity on the Bay, and yes, I can step more into that and just really be held by it and comforted by it. And my job for me right now is to be able to expand that loving community, to be able to see our nation, our humanity as one loving community. One of the things that she goes on to say in her book is that one way I understand beloved community is as our evolutionary potential. If we look at brain development over the eons, we see that the most recent emerged part of our brain, the frontal cortex, has the deep capacity for empathy, compassion, and what we might describe as an inclusive heart. That's our potential. That is our potential. It's not just our potential. As I hear that, I recognize that it is the way of our evolution. It is the track that we are on. It is the evolutionary journey that we are on. This is the newest part that we are stepping into. And so, yeah, there may be times when we falter. There may be times when we aren't fully in integrity with all the potential that is in there. And the potential is there. And our walk is towards a greater understanding of that and a greater expression of that. It isn't for the faint of heart. I've told you before, spirituality isn't for the faint of heart. Gone are the days when all we said was, let's just pray. Maybe that spirituality was easier, because now I understand spirituality as saying, yes, prayer is so important. And what we learn, what we do with what we receive in prayer is what really allows us to live in the experiences that we are meant to live in: harmony, beauty, joy, peace, togetherness. And it reminds me that as I allow myself to move more deeply into that it really does create a different kind of field. And it lifts all of us up, as I have experienced when other people with that peaceful, loving nature come into my presence and are able to just cool me down, right? Like, we have had that experience. It reminds me in Africa, specifically in South Africa, there was this tradition called Ubuntu. It's like a philosophy. And Ubuntu means, or it translates to, I am because you are. I am because you are. And when apartheid was done away with in South Africa, the leaders realized that there was such a need for healing that they took up this old tradition and created almost a philosophy of healing from apartheid in those moments. And so Ubuntu became the call. It became the guiding energy for what they did. I am because you are. You are because I am. We are one. And this Christ essence and this knowing is pushing through the division. Our opportunity is to ride its wave, to allow it to flourish within us. When you find yourself in a situation where so many things you don't know, and we may be experiencing that even right now. There are so many factors that we aren't sure about. This year has been a surprise, one after the other, hasn't it? In moments when we just aren't sure about what is going on, it's good to anchor ourselves in the things that we do know. And I know that God is here. I know that God is the power within us to heal whatever it is that we may be moving through. God is the wisdom to see through the eyes of God what is ours to do. And I have to tell you, I believe that God is not done with us yet, that there are still things that God is asking for us to express itself as us through. Now, Wednesday morning, I received an email from this church consultant, and let me tell you, after Tuesday evening election, it was like this consultant was preaching to me at a church with like 40 people in the choir singing hallelujah, you better get this one. And it really touched me because I believe that these are three things, he shared three things that we can really do to continue this healing that is needed in this moment, the harmony that is asking to be accepted into who we are as that loving, beloved community. Now, I did adapt them a little bit, but basically the first one is that we must own our role in the hurt and we must seek forgiveness. We all say, or I say, I'm so tired of the negativity. I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of that. Well, I have to be honest with myself. How much of all that is happening around me have I taken responsibility for? Said, what is my personal role in this that has taken place? I know that when I see a problem, it is so much easier to blame than to assume responsibility, but that's some of what I think we need to heal from, to no longer blame, but to really accept our role in making it so. And really not to get down on ourselves or feel guilty, but actually because that's the process. That's part of the process of them being able to know what it is that we must forgive. And I don't mean just forgive somebody else, but forgive ourselves for the ways in which we may not have shown up in harmony and peace, in love. It's the way to confess, to be able to move from being authentic with this moment to forgiving this experience to evolving beyond it. It isn't easy, but it's worth it. The second thing, and this is what he said, that a divided nation needs unity. And I take that to mean in both ways. It needs unity. It needs this community that you are a part of. It needs us to go deeper into the core values of who we are. Isn't that, at least I look out into the world, and I think that's what I want. I want to see more gratitude. I want to see more generosity, more love, being more spirit-led. And it's my opportunity to embody it in greater ways, to be more in integrity with it. The world does need unity, and I and you, we are unity. We also need this unity of bringing us together. One of my favorite sayings from Jesus, it's in Matthew, and it's where he says, "For where 2 or 3 or more are gathered in my name, I am there among them." To me, that's always meant that God is in our relationships. So I need to recognize how I'm showing up in those relationships. It doesn't mean that we have to agree. It doesn't mean that we don't do the work that is ours to do while somebody else does the work that is for them to do. It is just about recognizing that we can express more of our personal values and we can realize that we are one. We don't have to necessarily be a friend, but we can be human to each other. And the third thing is that we can be the alternative. And I think that's a little bit of both the first two, right? He says, it is pretty clear that the culture is tired of itself too, but it doesn't quite know how to escape. A generation tired of hate, yet caught up in its grip, will only be released from it when there's a clear alternative. We are that alternative. Being able to, by the grace of God, do Ho'oponopono in that moment when I was canvassing is the alternative. You being able to see this as an opportunity for greater healing is the alternative. Us being able to look beyond the fight and let go of the system that pits us against each other and to truly do what is ours to do, but to do it from a sense of oneness, of love, of peace, of harmony. In that moment when I did Ho'oponopono, what I recognized was that there was some level of hurt, and I don't know if I'll ever know what that level of hurt was in that other individual, but there was that. And although I felt her hurt in that moment, what I felt more of was hope. I felt hope, not hope in a candidate, not hope in a political party, hope in the Christ that is within me, hope that in the Christ that is within you, the Christ presence that is here. And in this very moment, we can allow to be more fully realized in our lives. Ubuntu, I am because you are. We've all felt it, experienced and shared it. We know that the Christ nature is there, and we know what it is and what it takes for us to be able to more fully express it. Ubuntu, I am because you are. Easy to say it here. Think about saying it into the heart of each and every person that you run into, each and every person that you see on TV. Ubuntu, I am because you are. It reminds me of that Rumi quote. My religion is love. Every heart is my temple. Ubuntu, I am because you are into every temple, every individual. And let me tell you, yes, healing is needed. I believe it. Healing is needed. But guess what? Lucky for us, we are healers. Let us go forth, heal that which must be healed, and then reveal a greater experience of harmony, of oneness, and of unity in the world. Be blessed.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay, a spiritual community located in Miami, Florida. Unity on the Bay is supported by the generosity of its community. If you'd like to make a donation or learn more about Unity on the Bay, please visit unityonthebay.org. You can also follow Unity on the Bay on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for even more positive spiritual inspiration. Until next time, thanks for listening and many blessings. Namaste.